Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Welcome again to the next lecture on the political science, class ninth. As you know, we have completed the previous chapter, that is, what is democracy, wherein we have discussed a lot about democracy, the definition, features, broader meaning of democracy as a form of government in comparison to non-democratic form of government. We have discussed democracy with reference to different countries, right? So when we were discussing the features of democracy, one of the features that we discussed in democracy is that democracy rules according to law, right? So one of the features without which democracy cannot be called a bad form of government is that democracy works according to a constitution, according to a rule of law. So what is this constitution? And the next chapter that we have to study is constitutional design, right? So without the basic rules, principles, mm, laid rules, democracy cannot work. Democracy cannot be called as a better form of government, because we have been discussing democracy in the previous chapter as a form of government, and there we concluded that democracy is widely accepted because it is better than other forms of government. So what makes it better? This rule of law, this feature that it works according to a rule of law, it according to a laid principle there. That means the rulers cannot work, cannot go, cannot work according to their own wishes. They are obliged, it is mandatory for them to work according to a set rules. So why these rules are given? These rules are found in a book, in the shape of a book, and that book is called the Constitution. So accordingly, our next chapter from political science is the constitutional design. In this chapter, we have to study what is constitution, why do we need a constitution, how constitutions are drawn up, how constitutions are designed, who designed them, and can we make changes to these constitutions later on as per the changing conditions. These are some of the questions that we will answer in this chapter, because the name of our next chapter is constitutional design. Here, as per our book, we have to begin with the with South Africa, democratic constitution in South Africa. How constitution came up, how constitution was formed in South Africa. It is our starting reference, and after that we will discuss in context of the Indian constitution, how Indian constitution was formed. So this whole chapter is about constitution, constitutional design. So let us begin with the democratic constitution in South Africa. Before going towards directly going towards this constitution framework, let us have a brief background, the conditions in which this constitution came up. If we look at the history of South Africa, so there we will find that South Africa was once the most unjust state. Why? You may have uh, learned, or you may be knowing about a great person of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, right? So this Nelson Mandela is acclaimed leader, world leader. Wow, what makes him so much influential all over the world? It is because he is the person who changed the whole political scenario of South Africa. So before moving towards this constitutional design in South Africa, let us have a background. What happened there and how constitution was formed in South Africa. South Africa, as we know, was also occupied by European traders who later on became the rulers of South Africa. So they imposed a system in South Africa. They imposed a system in South Africa which became the political system of South Africa, that is called the system of racial discrimination, right? So we are talking about apartheid. What is apartheid? Apartheid is a system of white discrimination, right? So in this apartheid system, these local rulers who were white in color, they discriminated against the blacks. They imposed a system of this apartheid, and according to which they divided people on the basis of skin color. Those who are blacks, who are dark in color, the natives of South Africa, the natives, they were dark in color. Majority population of South Africa, the natives, they were black in color, and then hence they were called blacks. While as these rulers, they were white in color, and hence they considered themselves as superior. These blacks were considered as inferior people. Besides these blacks, there were people of mixed races, colored. They were called colored people. There were also Indians. So these three were discriminated in the system of apartheid, and the most particularly these blacks were oppressed. The system was most oppressive for blacks, and Nelson Mandela was also a black leader. He fought against this system of apartheid. He was tried for treason, गद्दारी के लिए उसे सजा दी गई, life imprisonment for along with his other sound leaders. They were tried for treason and sentenced for life imprisonment, uh, where he spent 28 years 28 years of his life in the most dreaded prison, jail, Khatarnak jail, in 1964. That is the prison of Robben Island, right? So before this constitution was formed in South Africa, we now came to know that there was a system of apartheid which was imposed by the rulers who were white in color, and according to this system, blacks, colored, and Indians, they were discriminated. It was most oppressive for the blacks, the native blacks, and they were discriminated. It was unjust and a racist system in South Africa. So what happened in this system? It divided people on the basis of skin color. Those blacks, they were discriminated. Everything was separate for both whites and blacks. Buses, trains, schools, colleges, libraries, cinema halls, public toilets, swimming pools, beaches, even churches, they were separate. These blacks cannot work in the white areas. So you can imagine how unjust the system was. And later on we find people like Nelson Mandela who showed bravery and fought against the system, right? formed associations, workers' unions, Communist Party. Also, they were all these uh, those who fought against this apartheid system were supported by the Communist Party, right? So these communists also fought against this uh, apartheid under an organization, the ANC, African National Congress. African National Congress was the umbrella organization under which these forces who worked against this apartheid, who fought against this apartheid, they were this Nelson Mandela. He was the forefront leader, the forefront warrior against this. They fought against an organization called the African National Congress. And there were segregation laws. What do we mean by segregation laws? Segregation means when these all these things are separate for both whites and blacks. When buses, trains, public toilets, schools, hospitals, right? These are separate for the communities, for the blacks and the whites. This is called segregation. So finally, we see in South Africa this ANC under Nelson Mandela managed to abolish the system of apartheid in South Africa and formed and designed a new constitution which we will take up in the next lecture. Thank you very much.